I think what's going to happen here is we're going to have, we're all going to go gangbusters for the next, month, 6 weeks, and then we're going to have a little bit of a run out of work type situation waiting for permits and materials. So it's something that you could probably take advantage of for a short period of time, and then it's going to be a haywire again.
I think it's going to create this, perfect storm. I imagine that we'll open up earlier in the year than we did last time in 2020. So like it might be opening up in that April sort of zone where like we might be completely unrestricted again. I imagine that everything's just going to go wild.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and in today's video we catch up with John from BlackJack Contracting, and I'm really excited just to break down with him what's going on in 2021. So if you guys haven't been paying attention, we're going through another lockdown season, and there's a lot of potential implications when it comes to your construction or contracting project. So there's actually a lot of nuances in this. John is absolutely just the best resource in my opinion when it comes to this information, so really excited that he's willing to spend the time to break down for us his perspective when it comes to your construction projects and what you can expect while we navigate this current lockdown and the future consequences of it as well, because it's not just what happens today, this impacts the entire supply chain, right? We've been through this once before. Let's make sure that we can at least, kind of anticipate the problems we're going to encounter. And so let's jump into it.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here. I'm really excited for another video. We've got John back from BlackJack Contracting. And in today's video, we're going to be exploring the implications and the results and the unintended consequences, everything that's going to come out of us currently being in lockdown coming into 2021, and what you can expect in regards to your construction and contracting projects. And I'm really just happy to be able to get John back on the channel because you're always such a wealth of knowledge. How's everything going, John?
Great, man. Thanks for having me back.
So now that we figured out that at least we don't have to shut all our businesses down, at least yet, let's kind of chat about how this likely is still going to impact things. So even though you can continue on with current construction projects, what sort of things are you expecting to shape up as we go into the spring?
Sure. Yeah, as you said before, we got the news that anything that started before yesterday could continue on with construction, obviously with limited capacity and safety precautions. But it's kind of a little bit of a blast from the past. Sorry, I think we did this exact same thing back in March, and it's pretty much the same results. It's just we have some history to go back on now. So last time what we saw supply chain issues, supplier issues, permitting issues, and I expect it to be pretty much the same. The cities were already slow on permits, and now we have a 28-day shutdown, work from home. So I expect that the permitting's about to be non-existent. Last time they didn't even issue permits during the full lockdown. When it comes to materials, we now know that obviously the big box stores are they're going to be on reduced hours. It's not really going to affect what we do on a normal basis, but they're on that in-store pickup only. So right now, place an order on Home Depot right now, it's probably 2 or 3 days before you're getting a call to pick it up, right? So now the emphasis is going to be on planning and pre-ordering, and it's going to be a giant pain in the butt, but at least we know what to expect this time.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point there that we can't hit home enough, that like how you approach investing and doing your projects needs to evolve for the circumstances and the times. Like there was a time when like even just if you guys are doing your own renovations and you're just handymanning it yourself, like I can remember when I was going through that phase and you would just slip out 4 times in one day to Home Depot as you're working on the project. But now even just on an individual basis, our supply chain is going to be slowed down because we can't just run out to the hardware store. But in addition to that, like this has so many other unintended consequences, right? Like last time we really saw a squeeze on lumber prices and a lot of the input costs that you guys have as well. Obviously, neither John or I have a perfectly functioning crystal ball, but I think we probably feel confident saying that it's not going to get cheaper, a lot of your input costs probably this year.
No, we saw a lot of raises in prices in the last couple of months as things have been kind of running normally. We saw prices start to slowly drop down back to somewhat regular levels. I expect them to skyrocket back to what we saw after the first lockdown. I mean, lumber alone, because of the supply chain issues, and a lot of it's coming from out west, it's going to become a shortage again. I mean, fortunately, we're in the middle of winter here, so decking's not really an issue. But
I was going to bring that up, though. Honestly, like and feel free to share your opinion here, but like if you wanted to do that deck this season, like it's probably smart to be planning it right now, figuring out exactly what you need to order and get that order in sooner than later, I imagine.
I would like, I mean, if you got a big decking project, or even for your projects, you know, building patios and second stories for your rentals, like
Mhm.
I've seen that a lot this year. I'd probably stick it in storage if you can, because I think once April hits, you're not going to get it anymore. I mean, last year we didn't see it come into about June before we started seeing issues, but I think it's people knew this year too. So I think it's going to be a lot earlier this year because we all know what's happened now. So that's like it's pretty much with anything. I mean, I would probably start ordering stuff. You got a project coming up in 2 months. I would start seeing if you can't start getting that stuff now.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's really important. And so also talking about those renovation projects, like I'm imagining this is adding time as well. So if I know that project's coming up, I probably need to reach out to you or my contractor a lot sooner than I would have back in 2019.
Yeah, I mean, like, we talked about that in the first video about planning a lot earlier, but now I think it's going to get even worse than last year because now we know what we're doing.
Hmm.
Um, People, I mean, normally on a contract, you're going to book them, you know, a few weeks, a month in advance. I would try to get these guys booked 2, 3 months in advance, at least have some sort of agreement in place with them. Um, Again, I think what's going to happen here is we're going to have, you know, we're all going to go gangbusters for the next, you know, month, 6 weeks, and then we're going to have a little bit of a run out of work type situation waiting for permits and materials. So
Hmm.
it's something that you could probably take advantage of for a short period of time, and then it's going to be a haywire again.
Yeah, I imagine like again, no one's got a crystal ball, but it's difficult for me to think that there won't be extensions or they won't draw out this process even longer than what's currently being said. Again, looking at the past and the history, it seems a lot easier to get us to commit to a small thing and then just expand it rather than get us to commit to a big thing at the start. So this is one of those things where I imagine the government's going to ask for forgiveness rather than permission when it comes to extending lockdowns.
Yeah,
So, you know, whether it's a limited lockdown or a full lockdown going all the way into the spring, I think it's going to create this, you know, perfect storm. I imagine that we'll open up earlier in the year than we did last time in 2020. So like it might be opening up in that April sort of zone where like we might be completely unrestricted again. I imagine that everything's just going to go wild if the past is any indicator of the future. So like we could see a lot of pent up demand for buying properties, a ton of pent up demand, I think, for renovations, because again, having gone through this a second time, I think a lot of people, the people that were on the fence about turning their house into their castle, right? Or like doing that home theater or adding the deck or building the addition. I think everyone's going to be like, you know what? We need to do this because if there's going to be a third lockdown, I want the space. I want my hot tub. I want my sauna. I want this. I want that. And they're at least going to want to be able to enjoy the lockdown.
for sure. I mean, this is none of this has made any sense to anybody. It's been, as you know, the hottest real estate market I can remember.
Yeah.
And we're in the middle of a pandemic. Everybody's supposed to be broke, you know, no one's supposed to be working. But I mean, people took that money that they were going to do vacations on and they renovated their houses, or they bought another rental property. I mean, and I think it's going to continue for the whole year because it's going to be into the, you know, I mean, if any predictions, the vaccines and the immunization is going to be the end of the year, right? So no one's
Hmm.
traveling this year. So it's going to be the same thing on home renovation projects. I just read a report that it's from the construction International Construction Agency or something like that, that they expect that all construction is going to rebound to like pre-COVID levels. And last year we set a record with building permits in Hamilton alone.
Hmm.
So I don't think this year is going to get any better. So back to the point is just, this is something that you can't procrastinate on. If you got a plan for projects, you got to plan now.
Yeah, and plan well. And then so kind of building upon that, are you noticing any changes in your customers' plans? Like, are people changing the type of renovations they do? Are they trying, like, can you make your property more enticing because of COVID? Like, do you notice any interesting changes? Are they investing more, less, the same?
I thought it was going to scale down, but in the first part, I noticed that it was just they were scaling up. Now, obviously, we have a shortage of housing, right, and that's not going to improve. So people didn't scale back. I see a lot of different strategies changing a little bit. I mean, I know we were hammering the Burr model, right, and I noticed in
Hmm.
the last few months it's been back to more of the more to the other model, the cash flow model. stuff like that. But it doesn't mean people aren't doing BRRRR renos. It's crazy. But I mean, duplex conversions, which is, you know, my main market, is busier than I've ever seen it. People are buying things here in Hamilton. People are paying $600,000 and still doing the renovations for a bungalow, which is just insanity. Right? I mean, the refi values are supporting it, comps are supporting it, and you know, but I'm seeing a lot of people starting to look for that outside that market though, because, you know, as these prices are driving up, I'm seeing a lot of people go towards Woodstock and London and stuff like that, trying to look for that secondary market where they can get in. And that's what I'm starting to see happen a lot more because of some of the values in the major cities.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that insight. And so talking about 2021, and as investors are looking to expand the markets they invest in, you're still expanding the markets that you're going to be working in as well?
Yeah, you know what? We still got our plans in order. You know, we've expanded out to the London region now by popular demand. I'm starting to enjoy that market. I think that one, just on a personal level, because I didn't know the market very well, is going to explode with real estate investment because of the values and the drive. And as the schools start to go back, maybe next year we'll start seeing even more of that. But right now, between the duplexes and the renovations, and it's just insane. So I'm really enjoying learning that London area. Woodstock was a great one, and my goal is to get to Windsor this year. I mean, I've learned some lessons. I mean, on a personal note, about what it takes to expand your business
Yeah.
to another market. I mean, a little bit of lumps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plans that you kind of had, thinking working with some more subcon, realize that, wow, that's a pain in the butt, where I'd rather have my own team out there. So that's what we decided to implement in the London. We just hired our first full-time guy out there, project managers, all that stuff. So learned my lesson that way. And then, but I mean, now we can go with it. So London's starting to be nice. Woodstock's kind of fun because it's got such a low vacancy rate, but you know, the projects you're seeing there are really cool and the market's cool. And then so for me, I'll just keep doing my thing, and then, but you know, over the next couple of years, plan on being all over the province. But I've learned my lesson how to do so.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I actually really appreciate you sharing that perspective, John. Definitely, I've gone through the pains of trying to scale businesses as well. So I'm well familiar with having to take your lumps before you get your gold. And then just kind of, I guess, building upon that, one comment I just want to make is that's really exciting now that you've got a full-time project manager here in London. And I expect that you're going to see a lot of projects in the London area as well. I think Woodstock and Ingersoll are really uniquely positioned to pop well. And I think Ingersoll is going to become the new Woodstock. And we've really seen Woodstock on fire pretty much for living memory. For me as a real estate investor, it's been a great journey where people really love the fact that it's kind of placed in between Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge, and London on the 401 corridor.
Agreed.
So again, really appreciate you just kind of sharing your perspectives when it comes to 2021 and how we as investors should adapt. So again, summarizing for everyone here, we need to plan more. So like, it's more important than ever. Understand you also probably should be planning in gaps or like bonus time, right? So that you can like absorb that impact when it takes a week longer to get the permit, or it takes a week longer to get the lumber, or whatever case it is. And that also means that when we're also, oftentimes a lot of landlords would look at filling their units before they're fully completed. We're going to, again, need to plan out a little bit further and leave a bit more of a buffer when it comes to when the move-in date is, because there's just so many things, unfortunately, that are outside of our control these days as investors, and we need to be able to roll with those punches. So before we wrap up on this subject, John, anything else that you think the audience should keep in mind going into 2021?
Yeah, I mean, I still think there's a ton of opportunities, right? It's not something I would run away from. I mean, as a contractor and somebody that's pretty advocate about it, and we'll talk about it in a video series coming up. It's just like, I mean, do your research with these contractors because of the demand on contractors right now. Getting the ones that you're going to want to work with and not the Kijiji specials is going to become more and more prominent. And unfortunately, if you don't start now, you're going to be left with the ones you don't want. And I'll gladly go into that more later. But I think now is, I mean, building a relationship with your power team now while you can, before it goes haywire after this is all over, would be advantageous in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually think that's the most valuable tip you've given probably ever on my channel. It's like, if you guys actually want to succeed in 2021, we need to be reaching out to our contractors, our power team members, lining up the dominoes right now, because the moment the economy opens up, everyone's just going to be running full tilt, and you're going to end up being 3 months, 6 months, 9 months behind while you're waiting for contractors to finish up on their existing projects. So again, always appreciate your wealth of knowledge, John. We'll throw a link to John's contact information in the video description down below. If you guys are interested in chatting with John or having him quote one of your projects, really encourage you to reach out to him. And I know a lot of my London audience and Southwestern Ontario audience is excited to have a quality contractor moving into the neighborhood. So appreciate it, John.
Anytime, man. I love being on the show. Thanks a lot.
Thanks again to John. Really appreciate him breaking down his perspectives when it comes to 2021 prices, costs, timelines, all that good stuff. And just a reminder, he's now got a full-time employee here in London, Ontario. So that's amazing. I know a lot of people in Southwestern Ontario have been waiting for John to come down the 401 and the 403 so that we can actually use him. So if you guys want to get in contact with John, we're going to have all his contact information in the video description down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, smash the like button. If you've got any questions for John or any suggestions for future videos, in fact, one of the ones that I suggested to John was, let's just walk through an entire quote on a basement duplex conversion. Got a feeling you guys would like that, but let us know what other videos would you like us to do in the video description. I'll see you guys in the next video.